Hey everyone, so I'm back for another day of renovations, and I gotta tell you, like I'm in a mess in here. It's gotten out of control. I've got all this stuff that I want to do, but whenever I try and do it, everything is always in the way. I'm gonna share a little bit of that with you so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, because usually I hide this. Usually you don't see this in the videos, but it's gotten out of hand. So first off, there's this room. And right, this kind of speaks for itself. But whenever I'm working in one of these smaller rooms here, or I've got that room that's actively being worked, I just bring stuff out as I'm finished actively using it, and I just kind of dump it, which isn't always the best way to be. And let's be honest, that's just terrible, right? I always have a really hard time finding stuff when I need it. And then there's this room here, which, if we're being honest, if this was a police report, it would start with, "There appears to have been a struggle." I definitely got to get this cleaned up. And surprise, I did some work in here to try and hang this drywall. It's terrible. It's a travesty. And you know what? That's okay. It's done-ish. But yeah, we'll consider this the recap, because this took me like 6 hours. Obviously, I ran out of green board. I said, oh well, I had a hard time with these angles. I've already gone over it once to try and fill in some of the gaps that I have in here, but obviously we've still got some work to do. And then this room here. So this is where I'm planning on doing quite a bit of work today. But one of the things I found as I was trying to move that drywall lift around, right? Every little screw, of which there are hundreds on this floor, like I'm not kidding, hundreds of screws either pulled out of the walls that I've dropped as I've been working. Every little piece of wire casing that the electrician left behind, every shim, every crowbar, like everything prevents me from moving around as I'd like to, as fluidly as I'd like to anyway. So I gotta do something about it. I gotta clean it up. Once we're done with that though, we're gonna start taping this ceiling. We're gonna start getting all these joints taped. We're gonna fill in some of those larger cracks in the bathroom. We certainly got a lot to do. But for now, we just got to get this chaos back under control. I wasn't going to show this, but it's a really important part of being someone working by themselves in a longer term project like this. For me at least, right? I'm accountable to no one except myself here, or my wife. I'm accountable to her as well. But when it comes down to it, right, I have no reason to clean up at the end of the day. I'm not inconveniencing anyone but myself if I don't. But it hurts me, right? It hurts me to not keep this place cleaner than I do. You should have seen me in here. Like the reality of trying to work those drywall sheets around. Oh, it was terrible. So I'm going to try and do a better job of cleaning up after myself in the future. And for those of you watching, let this be a cautionary tale. All right, so that's good enough for now. Honestly, it was getting hard to move in here. I was constantly stepping over stuff. It was actually slowing me down. So I'm happy enough for now. All right, so obviously there's more that could be done, but I cleared off my table, and honestly, that's one of the big things I care about. I've got a bit of a thing going on over there, but I'm not super worried about that right now. We'll take care of that at some later point. And so this room's looking a whole lot better. So all the chunky bits that were all over the floor that were preventing me from moving the drywall lift around, those are all gone now, and honestly, I should have done that before I started putting drywall up, but you know, next time, right? And still, it was the right thing to do because I'm gonna be up on this plank with that ladder, mudding the ceiling. And just in general, I think it's gonna make it a lot easier to move around in here. All right, so next up, we're gonna mix up some setting compound, which is essentially just like the Easy Sand 90 or whatever. I'm in the bathroom now. I've got some pretty big gaps in here that I'm gonna fill in before I tape them. We're gonna do this first as kind of a little bit of a warm up. Then we're gonna head to the bedroom and we're gonna start taping that ceiling. So we're in the basement because this is the only running water source I have in the house, this one spigot that I actually have to replace. And my bucket's leaking, I think. Yep, it's definitely leaking. This is... You had one job as a bucket. It was to hold water. All right, luckily I didn't realize I had a bucket down here, so I brought another bucket. All right, so that should be enough for what I gotta do. One thing I do need to do is make sure I throw that bucket away because I will do this repeatedly if I don't. All right, so before I start mixing this up, I just want to say, yes, it is a mess in here. I didn't clean this up. It's still terrible. I always make a mess with this stuff, and I think to myself, you know what, this time will be different. And it never is. All right, we're gonna call that good. And again, I don't fully know if I need to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because I think it'll help keep the boards together when this room inevitably moves. I do have some pretty sizable gaps over here that I definitely think weren't taken care of. All right, so we're looking pretty good in there. I've just got a couple spots here I need to clean up where I think they're on the same side and a couple pieces of drywall. I think when I bought this, it was busted up. So I just need to cut this out and fill it in. Where's my 6-inch knife? Where did you go? I just had you. Where could you be? You were in my hand, and now you are gone. And I don't understand. Oh, there you are. I got one more to take care of right here, and this one was 100% my fault. So I was hanging the drywall. I didn't realize the electrical whip was right up here, and it was pushing down from one of the pieces of strapping and preventing this from getting close to the ceiling. So, boop, doop. While we're here, we got a little bit left over. See if we can't try and fix this guy up a little bit. So I came over here after I had dumped all my mud, and I realized that there were a couple spots here that had pretty big gaps. So I had to mix a new batch. Now I'm coming over here. I'm gonna do them again. All right, so obviously not ideal to have to backfill those joints because I didn't cut them very well. And that's the funny thing. Like, I've progressed in my skills to the point where I don't actually do things 100% right, but I know when I've done them wrong. And I knew that I was gonna have to deal with that. And I just said, okay, well, I'm gonna deal with it. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna backfill, I'm gonna have to sand. I'm gonna have to sand before I do any taping. And that's the funny thing, like, to get to the level where you know something's not right, but also to lack the skill to make it right the first time, at least I know it's wrong and what I'm in for when I have to fix it. All of the backfilling I had to do in here. So I can account for it. I just can't fix it yet. And that comes with practice and skill and learning. So, you know, obviously I hope to get better, but for now it is what it is. One thing I do want to try though is to make my life a little bit easier when I'm actually up there taping. So that's where this stuff comes in. So I've got I think that's a 2x10, and I've got a few 2x4s. And what I'm going to do is reinforce the 2x10 with the 2x4s, and then I'm gonna put it in between the rungs of a ladder. I'm gonna use it to make myself some makeshift staging. So I'm hoping with that staging, I should at least be able to work an 8-foot section of the ceiling at a time without having to move anything around or get down. I'm pretty excited. I think this is gonna work, and it's not quite so high that if I fall, I'm gonna break my neck. I hope I don't fall and break my neck. All right, so I'm gonna be using all-purpose for taping because I learned my lesson that you don't wanna use the setting compound because that stuff's real rough to work with. So that's one lesson learned that I actually remembered. The other thing I'm going to try that I don't normally do is mixing this. That, oh my gosh. I feel like that needs a little water. All right, so that was hilariously bad, and I know it. So I started out with the paper tape, and what was happening was the mud was basically falling down through where the gap was. So that's an area where I should have pre-filled. Lesson learned. So I let it sit for a little bit, and then I just kind of like pushed it back up. So for these last two, I decided to switch to fiberglass because it was easier to put up, and because it was the bevel joints, I should have some room in there to work without tearing the fiberglass or whatever. And I like fiberglass because I feel like it holds the mud in there better. It kind of keys in like old plaster and lath, but I don't think I can really use it on the butt joint, so I'm gonna have to go back to tape. All in all, for a first coat, it's bad. It's pretty bad, and I should probably feel bad. I do think it's salvageable in subsequent coats, so I'm not gonna worry about it too much. We're gonna move ahead to the butt joints. You ever hear that phrase, it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion? Yeah. I'm gonna try paper tape on this last one. Well, it's not the last one, I just have to do that one, but on this one, just to see what happens. The other one's backed, so. I guess that looks okay. All right, so after all that, this is the finished product, or finished for today. Am I happy with it? No. No, I'm not. Did it come out better than I expected? Yeah, it did. Because I had very low expectations for this. And you know, I was kind of learning as I went. I'm gonna have some work to do in here though. For example, here, I've got the fiberglass tape. That's gonna be harder to work with. You can see it wasn't bubbling a little bit, but there's a little bit that's kind of sticking out there, which actually may work out in my favor. I'm not sure yet. Ultimately though, I should have pre-filled some of the gaps that I had. For the most part, they weren't over 1/8 of an inch, but for some reason I was getting some pretty bad dimpling. And there was mud behind it, so not real sure what's going on. Maybe if I had left it, it would have been okay, just like I saw over on the side here where it kind of retracted back in. This evening, I'm gonna take a look online and see if I can kind of figure out what I should do in that sort of situation. I've only ever done a ceiling once before, and it did not come out well. It came out very poorly. So hopefully after all is said and done, everything turns out better in here. Because I've decided to do that front room as well. It's got the same sort of ceiling that we had in here. Actually, it's the 12 by 12 tile ceiling. Quick teleportation trip to the front room here. As you can see, it's missing some stuff, like ceiling. Against my better judgment, I'm probably gonna pull this one as well because it's pretty beat up. I'm gonna have a hard time fitting those tiles back in there, given how things are right now. So the good news is, all of that practice isn't gonna go to waste because I'm gonna have this room to do as well. So with that, I think I'm gonna wrap for the day. So stay tuned for future videos where you can watch me expertly finish up. It's gonna be a hot mess, but that's okay. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.